Hey guys, how you doing today? Um, no big news today, really. None that I could see. Just sort of a continuation of all the absurd nonsense that's going on in the world. Um, I mean, general trends. What am I seeing? There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of uncertainty. I mean, I feel like a lot of what we're seeing is just like the millennial generation's rage coming to the forefront. That there's lots of talk about like the validity of looting, and I just watched Chris Hedges, who is a brilliant speaker and a brilliant writer, just a brilliant person who I really admire. Um, Chris Hedges has written about looting, and he's written about um, the riots and the protests, and he's absolutely right, which is once the ruling elite cease to have authority, like once they lose credibility, the government loses its, the ruling bodies lose their monopoly on violence, right? Like that's the whole point of the Second Amendment in the Constitution, right? Is that if the government turns corrupt, you can organize violently against it. That's embedded in the American Constitution. It's right there. The great irony being, of course, that the people who are most likely to be pro-gun proponents are the least likely to actually rise up against the authoritarian fascist state that is clearly right in front of them. They're the most likely to actually side with the police. Um, this is the real irony of the whole situation. Um, there was a poll recently that came out. I put it on my Facebook, but it has Donald Trump at 42% support, has Joe Biden at 46% support, and has burning down police stations at 54% support. And I think that's about right in terms of, because there's a whole generation. Like I'm an elder millennial. I'm on the older side of a millennial. I actually think I'm literally on the year of being considered a millennial instead of a Gen X. And I consider what I absolutely consider what I've been seeing through my entire lifetime to be completely unacceptable. Not only in America but in Canada as well. The trajectory of our society is completely and grossly unacceptable. I don't support any of it. I'm not going to support any of it. My vote has always been a protest vote. I have always protested in my vote. I've never once voted Liberal, and I've never once voted Conservative because I consider them both complicit. The Conservatives, gleefully so, and the Liberals, they clutch at their heart and they say the right things, but then they completely betray the populace, and they've done that every single time. The only good thing that I can tell that the Liberals have ever done is legalizing a plant that it's probably their party that made it illegal in the first place. Um, I mean, they just always seem to, like, my perspective is very simple. Uh, like, the Liberals are willing to negotiate. I think the negotiations are over. I think the negotiations should be over. The Liberals are willing to look they're willing to look at the corporatists. They're willing to look at the neoliberals. They're willing to look at the billionaires, and they're willing to go, oh, okay, let's have a negotiation. So, like, if you want to maintain your position of power, then you have to cede on these points and these points, right? Like, and that's the liberal position. The liberal position has always been to um, prop up corporate and wealth to those forms of power, um, but to at least act as a pressure valve in the society to release pressure and to make it so that the citizenry will kind of bow their heads and go back to work. I'm no longer for that. I don't think that works for the society. I think that just makes for a slower march to fascism. Not that the liberals have actually done anything in regards to improving the lives of anyone, outside of the temporary CERB that they have clearly just done to maintain the stock, the human capital, which is, I'm sure, how they talk about it. The human capital needs to be taken care of. It needs to be safe. But now that the coronavirus is being declared finished, which is going to happen soon, or at least corporate culture seems to think it's finished. We're opening, we're going back to work, like pretending like everything's fine. And my position is very simply that no, the negotiations are over. These people have fucked up. And not like they've made one mistake. No, they have, down to the foundations of who they are as individuals, have unrepentantly and irreparably fucked up. They are no longer supportable. They're no longer tolerable. They should not be taken seriously. And I'm not just talking about politicians like the overt and open fascist Derek Sloan, who is in the Conservative Party and is gaining support to become the leader of that party. I'm not talking about Justin Trudeau, who refuses to condemn fascism, who remains completely silent on the rise of fascism that he's witnessing, not only in his own country, but in the United States. I'm talking about the billionaire class completely. Like, I'm talking about David Thompson, I'm talking about Galen Weston, I'm talking about James Pattison, right? These people do not have the right to rule any longer. They do not have the right to own media corporations. They do not have the right to own the majority of shares that they own. They do not have the right to exist in the society as they exist. The negotiations, as far as I'm concerned, the negotiations are over. Their power should be stripped from them. They should be eliminated from the civil society. All shares should be transferred to the working class, and the capitalist class should simply be done away with. Like, simply should be done away with. It should be eliminated from the society. Their private industries should be nationalized. They no longer have a leg to stand on. They no longer have credibility, because it's obvious that they don't value human life. They don't view us as humans. They certainly don't view us as equals. They view us explicitly as slaves to work for them so that they can go golfing and laugh about, oh, well, I got 100 million today. Oh, I got 105 million today. And then that shows which one of them is the better person. Because that's the only thing they value, is higher numbers in their offshore accounts. They don't value human life. They pretend like they do so that we'll put the pitchforks down. They'll donate the equivalent of 50 cents to a charity, and we're all supposed to be like, oh, well, they're such nice people. I'm pretty shocked, actually, at the bootlicking that goes on in this society, right? 30% of the society still supports the fascist party, which is the Conservative Party. That's a shockingly high number. I would expect that number to be more like 5%, maybe less than that, given the absolute absurd nonsense that's coming out of the party. Given that they have like a legitimate and open fascist running for the leadership of their party, who isn't being expelled, who isn't being sent away, who isn't being reprimanded, who, near as I can tell, is being fully supported. And then the Liberals, of course, this is in the midst of an emergency, and this is always the case, but they're at about 40% support, which in my view is very high. The Liberals rather, they're giving all the signs that they're not going to extend the CERB, they're not going to extend the basic income, they're not going to do that. I've been sending petitions around, I've been talking to people, and there are people who are hopeful that they will do the right thing. I'm not confident. Because I think that Trudeau followed his heart, because he's a drama teacher, when it was an emergency and there was really no one in his way who was actually stopping him. But, now it's been a couple of months and the corporate state is having its say. The neo-fascists are having their say. The neoliberals are having their say. and are attempting to convince, and have convinced, the liberals that we can just abandon millions of people into an economy that's been decimated and send them into unemployment, and that will be completely fine. Because if you're a neoliberal corporatist, right, that means that you can drive wages further down. You can demand more of a populace because now you have surplus labor, right? You have to remember these people are sociopaths. They don't have consciences. They don't have souls or hearts, right? Like, they don't actually care. If you want something done, you really have to dig your heels in, and you have to actually fight. And that's what's going to happen here in Canada, is that we're going to have to dig our heels in, and we're going to have to take to the streets, and we're going to have to fight. And there's just no two ways about it. And we're going to have to force them to take the masks off and reveal that they're fascists. And we're going to have to make sure that occurs. And I'm glad to see that Jagmeet Singh condemned Trudeau for his silence on the issue of fascism in the United States and his silence on the issue of racism. The bootlickers, of course, are like, well, we don't want to start anything with the United States. And it's like, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Like, the negotiation should be over, right? Like, fascism is bad. If Justin Trudeau had have literally just, when he was asked the question, if instead of standing there like a goof for 20 seconds, silently contemplating whether or not he should say fascism is bad, if instead of that he looked into the camera and said, fascism is bad, and then that's it, and then just move on, yeah, I think that's a far more respectable position than being silent on the issue of whether or not fascism is bad. Our grandparents fought a war against fascism, right? They went overseas, they killed fascists. For years and years when I was growing up, fascists were villains in our media. Nazis were villains in our media that you could just kill. Like, you literally could just kill a guy. If his name was Fritz, you could just shoot him and he would die, right? Indiana Jones, for God's sakes. The whole trilogy of the Indiana Jones franchise was just killing Nazis. I watched a Nazi melt in front of me because of the divine power of God. And my response to that was, yeah, good, he got what he deserved. And I would expect anybody to act the same. When I see a video of somebody full force punching a Nazi in the face, somebody who has a swastika tattooed onto them, or is doing a Nazi salute, I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, get that guy. Like, get him. And my question has always been, why aren't the police doing the same? Why are the neo-Nazis allowed to just sort of walk around, organize, do what they want? But if you actually say you're an anti-fascist, oh, well, now you're in a terrorist organization, right? If you say that you're a Ku Klux Klan member, you're not a terrorist, right? But if you say you're an anti-fascist, you are a terrorist. So I'm over it. I don't support the liberals, I don't support the conservatives, and I think anyone who does is either evil or a fool. These people need to be expunged, and we need to end the negotiation. And that's what these protests are all about, right? It's ending the negotiations. The people who are in the Democratic Party and who are in the Republican Party need to be removed. They need to be expunged from the civil society, and the United States needs to redraw its constitution. Like, that obviously needs to happen. And that's the trajectory of what I think these protests are ultimately going to demand, right? Is a redraw of the Constitution to guarantee economic safety for the citizens. To remove stipulations that James Madison built into the Constitution in order to exclude people from it, in order to maintain power and the wealth of the nation. To me, I think negotiating with neoliberals, like, what's the phrase they always use, right? We don't negotiate with terrorists. Okay, well then that's my position. I don't negotiate with terrorists. I don't negotiate with people who are actively attempting to destroy the economy, destroy the society, and destroy my life, who are attempting to plunge people into wage slavery, who are attempting to dominate the battlefield, so to speak. I think it should be done. I think it should be done away with. And the whole system, as it stands right now, they're just going to try to put us back to work, and we're all supposed to just nod our head and go, okay, sir, okay. We should be organizing protests. We should be having regular protests. We should be making it very clear that, first of all, fascism is bad, right? I don't understand why that's so hard to say. I don't understand why it's so difficult for the leader of our country to say fascism is bad, right? Maybe he doesn't think fascism is bad. Take a look at Bill Blair, right? Take a look at the guy who's in his ministry cabinet, right? Like, there's a guy who was doing stop and frisk. There's a guy who was doing all of these horrible policies. And he just gets appointed to the Ministry of Safety? This, like, Orwellian kind of term. And so, I mean, Justin Trudeau puts on a good act about being a pretty pleasant person, but, like, you know, the RCMP attacked an unceded land of First Nations people under Justin Trudeau's watch, right? Any of those RCMP officers go to jail for that? No? Oh, I can't imagine why. So yeah, I mean, as a millennial, as an elder millennial, I think that the negotiations are over. I think that we should take control of the country. We should strip power from all of the neoliberals, all of them. We should nationalize the banks. We should nationalize the communications network. We should nationalize certainly the healthcare system. What Doug Ford is doing here is evil. It's just like Skeletor level evil. And we should not negotiate with these terrorists. I think people who stand up and say that we should privatize public healthcare systems or systems that are currently public healthcare, they should be chased out of the civil society. They should be bankrupted. And they should just not be allowed to do commerce here because we don't need sociopaths in our discourse. We need to take control of the civil society and return it to the people. Workers should own the places they work. They should own the shares. The capitalists should be gone. Just should be gone. The ones who choose to participate in the civil society, right? They can work like the rest of us. And the ones who want to act like sociopaths and continue enslaving people can be discarded or arrested, if you ask me. Like, I have no problems with that. I have no qualms with that, right? We're abolishing slavery here, right? Like, I'm not interested in maintaining slave systems. So I'm frustrated and I'm angry and I'm upset and I'm done negotiating and I'm done pretending like we have to negotiate. I feel like my demands and how I think the civil society should move forward are completely rational and completely normal. And it's extremely telling that the only thing that other people can say is, well, that's communism. And the second I hear that, I'm like, you're illiterate. Like, not only are you illiterate, you're stupid. If that's your response to this, I think you're among the stupidest people who have ever walked the face of the planet. Because all you have to do is look at your own history, Canadian history, to see that everything I'm talking about works. The neoliberal system dismantled a lot of the public works and a lot of the public institutions that we held, and it has made the society worse by a large margin. And if you're saying, oh, communism's never worked, then you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know what I'm talking about. Because I'm not even talking about communism. I am talking about returning us to systems that we already had, that we know work. So, here's hoping that it continues down in the States, that the protests continue. Here's hoping that our leadership actually makes the wise decision instead of the selfish, pedantic, evil one. I suspect they'll make the selfish, pedantic, evil one, but we'll see. I don't see any reason for us to trust these liberals. And honestly, I've said it before on this channel, I'll say it again. We're just an incredibly gullible people. We're just incredibly gullible. And we just keep believing liars who continuously lie to us, and we can literally see them abandon people. Like, I feel like Doug Ford could cut a child's throat in front of us, and 30% of the populace would act as an apologist for him. Like, that's where I feel like the society is at. I genuinely feel our ruling class is not interested in helping anyone. I feel like they're interested in spreading misery. I legitimately think that if we showed them that we could reduce, like, we could make it so that everybody could just work 2 days a week and it would double their profits, I think that they would maintain this system, because I don't think they're interested in, I don't even think they're actually that interested in the money. I think they're interested in spreading suffering and getting off on it. That's where I'm at. And I'm going to have to see some pretty significant and dramatic things to be convinced otherwise. Because my opinion is that we're being ruled by sociopaths who are very much just calculating how they interact with the public. I think we should get rid of them. And not only get rid of them, but literally get rid of every single institution they've ever even touched. Right? Like, ever even touched. That's how disgusting and corrupted I think their entire worldview is. That if I find out that a third-tier assistant, like the assistant of an assistant of an assistant, of someone like Bill Morneau, let's say, who's the current finance minister, or Chrystia Freeland, if I find out that the third assistant of Chrystia Freeland or Bill Morneau, certainly of any of these conservatives, Aaron O'Toole or Peter MacKay, if I found out that any of them worked on the board of directors for, I don't know, some like UAVC 483, right? Some corporate entity that's like on the offshore, I'd be like, okay, shut it down. And that's my position. Like, I think that these people are so corrupt, so illiterate, so uneducated, they so duplicitous and evil and manipulative and dedicated to systems of death that they cannot be reformed. They're not interested in being reformed, and they just need to be expelled from the society. And anything that these liberals and literally any other liberals and any other conservatives and any of these people, anything they've even put their hand on, I think we should just clear it out, should just shut it down, just shunt it aside, and rebuild something new. Because at least that something new isn't going to be structured completely to destroy us, which is exactly what our system is currently structured to do. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what these liberals do. Chances are good that they will just remain silent, right? They're just going to plunge millions of people into desperation, millions of people into unemployment, and they'll just stay silent, because that's what the liberals do. They just stay silent while fascism wins. All right, that's the end of this video. Good luck out there, guys.